Hello. Happy Memorial Day. And it's 420 Memorial Day. Happy 420. Let's get high. I'd been asked to speak about the cosmos, which I was more or less prepared to do, and I realized it's Memorial Day. So please excuse me, I'm just going to put that off until tomorrow. And I just feel compelled to, speak about Memorial Day because, one, because I was a Vietnam veteran. I wasn't actually in country, but I have an interesting story about the war, about a few wars I've been involved in. So I thought that's what I wanted to talk about today. And when I graduated high school, 1962, there was the Cold War. And there was a draft. And frankly, I was afraid of being drafted by the Army and sent down to some, southern state, is what I heard about, that, they take you down there, and knock you around for a while. And I just, particularly having seen, so much of the violence, from civil rights on the TV, and someone told me about this program that you go in the Navy for, you go in while you're 17 and you get out the day before you're 21. Usually you go in the Navy, Air Force, and when you get out of the Army is you had to enlist for 4 years, which is a long time. But this was like 3 years and like 3 months, something like that. And I went in. I must say, it was quite the experience. And I don't know, lucky to have survived it, but I did have a number of very close calls, and I saw a lot of very interesting, exciting things. But at the end, a year before I was to get out, it's interesting. They had an operation in Okinawa. Generally, we were stationed in the Philippines, and we had this operation in Okinawa. We were gathering. See, we were the flagship of the amphibious force. So the admiral had decided we're going to have an operation there in Okinawa, Big Bay in Okinawa. And I think there was something like 30, 40 ships that were involved in this Okinawa, planning an invasion, not into Okinawa because we were friends with them. We had bases there, but it was like a practice invasion. And just before the scheduled invasion, a typhoon came up and was scheduled to go. A schedule was charted, I guess, to go right over our heads. And the admiral decided we're going to stay. We're going to fight it out. We're going to learn how to deal with a a tornado, not a tornado, a typhoon. Typhoon is basically a hurricane, but going the opposite directions. This one had 150-mile-hour winds, which is quite the tornado, quite the hurricane, not the hurricane, but it just spins the other way. So and I've been through a few typhoons and a few very dangerous storms. I find them extremely exciting. And it's just like you feel the power of the ocean, and you're locked in this metal can, basically. And there's many rules about how you deal with things like this. Um, but for this particular operation, in order for us to all be able to stay in the bay together with the storm coming through, is we all had to have our engines running and be going against the wind. And one ship lost their engines, and they started swinging on their anchor. And my workplace was right beneath. We had like um, a helicopter pad for the admiral, and my work was underneath. I was in electronics, and we actually got hit like right there on the like right above my workspace, and just everyone was running. I mean, it was like really chaos. And I said, what are you going to do in the middle of the storm? You got this thing swinging around on its anchor. In the morning, I mean, like a couple of ships were on the rocks, and we were like badly damaged. I don't know, badly damaged. We were certainly damaged. And we made our way back to the Philippines, and to get fixed. And just before we were to be finished, we got a message that we needed to go to Vietnam. But we had to finish, getting everything fixed. So we had to go out right out. They wouldn't let us stay in the harbor, so we had to go outside, and stay close to the harbor because this was like an emergency. And as soon as things were clear, we had to go in and go to Vietnam. So that was another typhoon that we went through, and that was also a very strenuous storm. And again, it was many exciting things like happen on board ship and how people interact. And it's a whole thing. It's like the only way one can know things in this world is to experience them. And once you experience them, you can try to tell people about them, but as they say, yeah, I guess you had to be there. But so in the end, we went back. We went out to Vietnam, and on the way to Vietnam, so they get us together, and they each division, and told us what was going on. So there had been a lot of fighting between North Vietnam and South Vietnam. And North Vietnam was controlled by Ho Chi Minh, and he was aligned with the communists. And he wanted Vietnam to be, one country. They didn't see why it was that America was helping to prop up a Christian regime in the South. And the reason they were doing this is because, more than a decade earlier, the John Foster Dulles, who was the head of state, Secretary of State under Eisenhower, had, I believe, or maybe it was under Truman, I don't remember, had come up with what was called the domino theory, that communism was so dangerous that if we allowed one country to fall, like Vietnam, then all the countries around would fall. And this was just another propaganda, just thing that, just wasn't true. I mean, communism works good for countries that are having, difficulty. It helps. Everyone just gets together and makes sure everyone, has what they need. Later you can get into like, capitalism, when, everyone's got a place to live, and, people who are industrious can go do industry, not a problem. But it's not the kind of thing that communism was ever going to take over the world. And they knew it. So they added a caveat to that they didn't have a God. Only the West had God, and the Russia and China, these were infidels who, if they ruled the world, they would somehow destroy God. Another just absurdity. But in those times when we had to rely upon the authorities to tell us what was true, because we couldn't uh, we couldn't know like what was true. We didn't have like phones. I mean, we had phones, very rudimentary phones, cost a lot to call overseas. You really had to. I remember in high school, they're showing us a picture of a like a Chinese magazine, and the front of the picture were all these kids, and they were smiling, and they had their hands up, and they're all kind of dressed the same. And the teacher explained to us that if we looked closely, we'd see they all had watches. And that's why they were happy. Really, they were really miserable, but today they gave them all watches, so they smiled. This is the kind of crap that they said that they taught us, and people didn't really know. And and so now they're telling us about Vietnam. But so they sent us out not to make a war. They sent us out to invade. We were supposed to invade on the demarcation line separating North and South Vietnam. So the thing is that in those days, people of my age, and I was born in 1944, at the end of the wars, the war against Germany, the war against Japan, and we were all, taught from your childhood. You go to the movies and they show you, with pride how we blew up, ignited an atomic bomb and killed all these people. And it was really, really romanticized and glamorized. The whole idea of war and of America being America the Beautiful was standing up against evil. And we all grew up, pretty much to be patriotic. And that's what most of us on the ship, we were patriotic kids, and we recognized that we were being involved, and we were the flagship, the amphibious force, and we were going to make this landing, and we're probably involved in something very historic. And we got out there and we just worked like crazy. Everything on the ship had to be perfect, and day and night, until 24 hours before the invasion. And we got word in those days, to get word from the Pentagon, which was on the other side of the earth, they had to bounce it off the moon. And we got word that they had called off the invasion and ordered us instead to take all the troops, take them to Saigon, because they were going to fight a conventional war. And not everyone knew then, but we found out soon enough that no one ever won a conventional war against the Vietnamese. Not the Chinese, not the Russians, not the French, not anybody. And people were really upset. Right? We were there to serve our country and to put ourselves in harm's way. And we did it with patriotism. We did it with love of country. And they fucked us. They just used us as pawns to start a war that they knew they couldn't win. But the things that they could do with it is they could really hurt the Black Power movement, which had begun to erupt in America. There was Martin Luther King, who his message was very peaceful, but there were other people who weren't so peaceful. And the way that the government dealt with this was they started a war, and they exempted anyone who was married or who went to college, which generally were the white population, who tend to marry and go to college, or marry or go to college, where Black people who were on the lower rung of society depended on welfare. and they got more welfare if they weren't married. So people, even who were families, tended not to marry, so they'd get more welfare, and those are the ones who ended up going to Vietnam and came back, many of them addicted. And the war really was a war against the American people. So I don't know. I'm very conflicted when it comes to Memorial Day, because I think that it is, I've been to the Arlington National Cemetery many times. It's just you really get a sense of all these people. They're buried there. You have to have died in combat to be buried there. And all the people who have given, their lives, for this country, which really is a very special country, in that we're really the only completely immigrant country that was never under the hand of a king, and that where there truly is equality, because there's no race or religion or creed which is supposed to rule America. It's supposed to be just ruled by by the majority of the people. But unfortunately, done under the guise of Rome and under the laws of Rome, that they've manipulated, just like they manipulated all these people who were patriotic for their country, to use them in a war where they got rich. Nixon, he predicted when the war would end years before. They had it all scripted out, and for months or years, whatever it was, they sat around a table and discussed what the shape of the table should be. While people were dying and napalm was falling, and no one really, we couldn't say no one gave a shit, people did give a shit. And I just want to say, I haven't been able to read this, so someone's been writing to me. And he just wrote that Torah, Quran, and Bible are prophecy. And that is absolutely not true. Only Torah and Quran are prophecy. The Bible is absolutely not prophecy. Not one word of the Bible is prophecy, not even the stuff they translated it as prophecy is prophecy. It is not prophecy. No way, Jose, man. Anyways, and see, this is Rome. Like, Rome just lies. They lie about everything. And, and why I think, like, everything is being revealed in this time, of kavod, and kavod means respect in Hebrew. And it's funny, it also means heavy. And respect is a very heavy thing, and people have not shown respect for our country. They've tried to, to rule it, and to make it religious, and to make it into all sorts of things which are really not just the opposite of the Constitution. I don't know about the Constitution, but I know what the people of this country, that we're all equal because we're all immigrants. And it's hard to be an immigrant anywhere. But the beauty of America is that we're an immigrant. There's immigrants from all over the world in America, and that makes us like a little world. And so it's really incumbent upon us to get it right, and to stop fighting wars for people whose only interest is their interest, that they have some sort of interest in some part of the world because they need some part of the world and they want to go control it. And that's not what America is about. Excuse me. Getting a little cotton mouth there. And so, and to me, I mean, the problem, and really problem with the Constitution, is all of this is basically Roman. And it ends up that, like Rome, they just want to win. So there can't be any justice in America because you have a certain group of people that the only thing that matters to them is winning. So they don't care about the people. They don't even care about any ideals that are in the Constitution. They're just interested about using these things and grabbing onto power in the courts or wherever they can to show that they won and things are going to be the way they say, even though they don't know what they're talking about and they're wrong about most things. But they want to have the power. And because of that, we have these internal fights in America, where the beauty of America is that no matter what the fights you had in another country, when you come to America, you can live with people, the people who were your enemy, and you can be their neighbors. And here we're all American. We all come from some sort of problem, but we're all American. And through that, we really knit together a little world in America, which is really beautiful. That is America the beautiful. In Torah, that beauty, it cannot be one color. One color is never beautiful. Beauty is many colors. And God loves new. In other words, you get one thing that works. It's not so do that thing over. God loves new. Do it a new way. That was beautiful. Do it a new way. Beauty can be in so many ways. And the same with the people of America. We don't have to do it, the way some Roman emperor did it, 2,000 years ago. I mean, that is ridiculous. And we've all, we're all relatively educated at this point, if not through school, through media, except those people who are, lost in religion and don't really understand anything but dogma. And that's a lot of the problem of our country and how these things continue to perpetuate themselves, is because people are taught not to think. When you're in the service, that's what they teach you also. They teach you not to think, just do what you're told. Even if it seems like you're going to cast away your life, do what you're told, because maybe many other people's lives are dependent upon that. And I'm sure there's many of those people in Arlington Cemetery who did that, and was really a valiant thing to do. And people see what it is to have courage. I mean, again, these are things people can talk about and they can read about, but until you see people actually do it, or until yourself is forced into some situation where you're forced to do something you wouldn't regularly do, and you do it. And, of course, in Vietnam, when we came back from Vietnam, people hated us. We hated ourselves. And but we were some of the many casualties that came out of that war, that all it did was make money for the rich people, get them more ensconced in power and money. And as in the Navy before we left overseas, and remember just sitting around, and you have a division room where you hang out, and where they announced that that the president had been shot, and the president's the commander in chief. And with all of that going on, we were still our command was to do what we were told. In a sense, we couldn't really have an opinion. We were in the service of the country, and we did what they were told, even when they shot down the commander in chief. So I don't know, I mean, I think, particularly as a writer, I was fortunate to be in places where things happened. I mean, I wasn't, thank God I wasn't on the ground in Vietnam and had to see the horrors that people had to witness. Well, back on the ship before the invasion, they asked for volunteers to go on the ground, and many people volunteered. And I wasn't one of them. I don't have that kind of courage. You know, I think we all have courage for different things, but that ain't mine. And it's good to know who you are. In Torah, when they had to go to war, that they would gather everyone together and say, did anyone get married recently? And all the people who raised their hands, they told them, go home because you have to go with your wife the first year and make her happy. And all the people who had planted a vineyard, they raised their hands. And there were a few things if you had done that they felt you shouldn't go to war and have to worry about, someone else is going to take your wife or take your vineyard or live in your house you just built. And then at the end, they ask, and if anyone's afraid, they should go too. So that way people could leave and no one knew if maybe someone had took a new wife or built a new house or planted a vineyard or whatever. Or if they were just afraid. It was a nice way to sort of shield people. And even when they made war, that the commandment about making war is first you have to ask for peace. Not allowed to just go make war. You have to go and say, look, let's just be peaceful. No one has to die. If they insist on war, then you always have to give to them a way out. If in the middle of the war they say, hey man, this sucks, maybe we shouldn't be at war, we can say, hey, there's a way out. If you go, we won't fight with you. You're going to stay and fight, we're going to kill you. And there were people who would rather stay and fight and die. And unfortunately, things have changed that much that there's still people who would rather just die, shoot off missiles and die. And kill other people, know that people are going to die because of your actions that you're going to justify by saying it was you wanted to get sort of political advantage. Well, this is just, it's disgraceful. No one should have to die for politics, but most of the wars, either religion or politics. So, I don't know. So I just kind of felt about saying all this stuff. And, I certainly hope that there's war no more. That's my hope for the world. And it really can be an American. It can have a lot to do with that. If we would stop competing with our brothers and sisters around the world, and if we would all start cooperating to clean up the world and to make sure that the poor are fed and the poor are housed and the hungry are fed, and just be basic good human beings, that we can all be proud, to be whatever country we are, that that we don't, that the human being has an adequate life. Not everyone wants to be rich or go around and do a bunch of things. A lot of people are happy to have a simple life, and they should be allowed to do that. Anyways, I have a few more minutes. I just said someone's written me all these things. And I just want to take a look at it. I don't know. I don't know. Well, I don't know. I'm not so much into people lecturing me. I'd much prefer if you have a question, you can ask me a question. Here's something. If life is God's prophecy, how is that something out of life could not be prophecy? Okay, so I could explain another time about prophecy, but let me just explain in general. Prophecy comes from the heaven, and God is not physical, and God is not spiritual. God is not in heaven. God is not on earth. God is nothing of creation. God is everywhere, all the time, to everybody, which is the meaning of Hashem Echad, that God is one. And prophecy has to do with a prophet, and you have to prove that you're a prophet. You just can't say a bunch of shit or write some book down and force people by the sword to accept it. And you had to, if it was unsure, some people it was obvious they were prophets. If it was unsure, you had to do perform a positive prophecy. Something was for the good of people 3 times, and then you could be accepted as your word was prophecy. So people throw around these words and they don't know what they mean, and certainly not everything is prophecy. We have freedom of choice. Prophecy comes from heaven to help us in that moment, or maybe for sometime in the future, like prophecies are written down, are for the future, that are there to help us, not because uh, uh, everything is prophesized. On the contrary, that God saw in the very beginning every possibility that everyone could take through all time. To God, it was a little thing, is a little thing. But it's up to us which way we go. And whether there's prophecy or not, that doesn't stop one's freedom of choice. And whether we, in the end, can stand before the light of God when we go to the next world, or whether we're embarrassed, depends upon the choices we make in our life. So, thank you very much, and have a happy Memorial Day. Yes, it's Memorial Day, and see you tomorrow.